Welcome everyone to 20A's latest podcast. I'm your host, Paul Jamieson. And today we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're going to be speaking to Simon Leadbetter.
Hello.
Hi, Simon.
Hi.
So Simon runs and is the founder of We Are Unchained, a great marketing agency, as sure most of you will know. And we're joined by Mark Burgess, CEO of Iceberg Digital, and David Lindley, CEO of By Design.
Hello.
And we're going to be discussing the Voice of the Agent survey that Simon and his company have recently launched. And we've got the results. And if you can see on the desk, there's a chunky booklet there with all the survey results in, which is great. And we're going to be discussing kind of what that looks like this year. Now, before we delve into that, I'm going to start with a really quick fire market update because that's what we usually do on the podcast, but I'm going to make it really, really quick. And I think it's worth just dwelling on it for a few seconds, just because the market has started with a bang, to be honest. And I'll just go through those numbers now. So we've got the January kind of numbers in as a business. So sales-wise, if we just look at how last year finished, transactions finished at just over 1.1 million. So we had a lot stronger year than 2023. And we know already that transactions are going to be a lot higher going into Q1 because we went into the start of this year with lots more sale agreeds, which kind of naturally will go through to complete. We've seen lots more activity already. So new instructions are up 7.3% year on year, which is the highest it's been in 6 years. Sale agreeds are up a massive 17% year on year. So it's the highest demand level we've seen since 2021, which was that kind of crazy post-COVID year and stamp duty changes. And prices remain fairly static. They're kind of creeping up, but no price falls like some have forecasted. Lettings, bit of a different story. So instructions are down 3%, let agreeds are up 6.5%. So growth in demand is outstripping supply, and we've got the same issues of affordability and availability, I think. And actually available stocks, if you're looking to rent now, is 16% lower than it was at this stage last year. So there's a chronic shortage.
So what was that, 16% lower
than January last year?
For available stock?
Yeah, so it's kind of pretty desperate as a renter out there. So I think in summary, sales market looks really, really good. Lettings with some challenges which we were all aware of. Just coming to you guys, is how have you found it from speaking to agents and your own businesses?
Pretty good start to the year. I think that last year, generally speaking, there was loads of distractions, loads of reasons not to do something, from elections, US elections, budgets. Was it the Euros last year?
Yep.
Yeah. People throw that into the mix as well.
Interesting, the Euros had the biggest negative effect on the housing market last year out of everything.
Yeah.
So
wow.
People think it was the budget. When the Euros was on, demand fell through a roof because people just like, I'm not going on a viewing, I'm to watch England. Which is a bit depressing because England were a bit rubbish, even though they got to the finals. Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it? You have all these kind of economic uncertainty, and actually the thing that affected it the most was the Euros.
Yeah.
And the Olympics, no one cared. It stayed the same.
But coming into this year, you would think, you would hope and touch wood, there is pretty distraction free as far as a year goes. I thought you were touching wood then.
Smacking wood.
It's not that kind of podcasting.
Please. Not a property for stars anymore. But yeah, you'd think that this year would be shaping up to be quite good. Obviously got the stamp duty changes as well, coming up with a bit of impetus in the market. So that's interesting. But other than that, you'd think it should shape up to be a good year.
Yep.
I mean, we're seeing, and we'll get into the report later on, but confidence levels among. So there's a question that our partner YouGov asked about, do you think your property price will rise in the next 12 months, or will it fall or stay the same? And we basically do a net figure of those who think it will rise and those who think it will fall. It's been a real roller coaster. And in the report, you can see the roller coaster we've been on, really going through a dip through lockdown, peaking back up after lockdown until the Russian invasion. It reached its lowest point since 2017 under the Truss government. And it's just risen and risen and risen since. I mean, if we apply the model, because there's quite a high correlation between confidence and actual achieved property prices, the figures that come out are, to me, incredible of what will happen to the market. It's the higher end of most forecasts that we see in terms of what would happen to the market. Now, it's correlation, not causation, so it's hard to do a forward look, but all the noises, certainly in the sales market's good, really good.
Yeah, we had 2 interest rate cuts at the tail end of last year. We've just had one at the start of this year. Consumer confidence is high, like you're saying, and we've got the stamp duty deadline, which has helped activity. So it's been a stonking start to the year, and I think long may it continue.
Yeah, we obviously just look at things like how many buyers are registering across the life cycle system on the nationally, and try and get an idea of it that way, and that's gone off the charts. When I've spoken to agents, Most of them have said something similar to me. Most of them have said they were worried when the year started. They had a few fall throughs, and they didn't really have much going on, and they were like, "This isn't looking good," and then it just went off the hook. It's continuing for them like that at the moment.
Yeah, great. Well, let's get into the meat of it then, Simon. I'll come to you. So, what is the Voice of the Agent survey? For someone listening to this going, what the hell are these guys talking about? Just describe what it is, how many people you survey, and what the benefit is, I suppose, to estate agents listening to this.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I started out on my own, having worked for Countrywide, Knight Frank, Keller Williams, Fine & Country. And basically, I wanted to research the market because I knew my world, and like all of us, we have a bounded rationality of these are the people I know and this is what I think is going on in the market. Thought, I've done it in other industries, I did it in financial services for years, where you just do a sense check of what's going on in the market, and it's really useful for an internal document. I then actually the insight that came out of it is like, well, actually, why can't everybody benefit from this? We all live in our local areas, we all know our own tribes. So we got 553 responses to the first one, which was amazing. So that was 2023. 2024, we got 841 for the 2024 report. And this year we pushed over 1,000 responses. I don't think we'll get more than that. I think we literally have probably reached the level it's going to get to, because that's really high. But what it means for an agent is if you're an agent in Skegness and you have a view of the market in Skegness, you can read this report about what the industry's saying. And it's just a really hand insight that whatever you think about the market, sales, lettings, the market overall, and in this chapter specifically what's going on in marketing, you suddenly have the information of what most agents are doing, but critically what the agents who are growing are doing. And you can compare what you're doing against the best in the industry. And I think that's great for our industry. We just need to do better marketing, and I'm happy to give them the information to do so.
Great. And if someone wants to get hold of the survey, what do they need to do?
It's completely free.
Yep.
So they go online, we'll share a link presumably with this video. They can download it, enter their details, and download the full report for free. It's totally accessible. It's not designed for either big, small, little, self-employed, employed, whatever. It's for anyone who's really interested in the industry can read about it.
Great. And for anyone that can't be bothered to do that, we're gonna summarise some of the key takeaways from the report, so you could just watch.
We are the too long didn't read episode.
So yeah, there's a wealth of stats and figures in here. So I'd recommend anyone to have a proper read through of it. We're going to pick some of those out today. We can't possibly go through everything, but we'll perhaps start with the sales market. So you kind of looked at the sales market, the lettings market, and then a few questions around marketing. So they're the three themes we'll look at. So if we start with sales, just in terms of market trends and new instructions. So with the survey, 76% of agents reported growth in new instructions in 2024, but only 57% were expecting that to continue in 2025. Now, we've kind of touched on this already. We're filming this in February. New instructions have actually increased already this year, but what factors do we think are going to influence vendor confidence in the coming year?
A lot of it's going to come down to the media, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's where where that feeling of confidence comes from. Interest rates is a big one, and there's been lots of talk about what's going on with interest rates at the start of the year, going all the way back into the funny business of stuff I don't even pretend to understand, with gilts and bonds and all those sort of rates and everything that's causing those fluctuations as well. But I think the media obviously play a massive part in that as well, and interest rates coming down as they already have done and should continue to do this year will make a big difference. Although just interestingly, kind of this is just personally speaking, I thought this was weird. This is not statistical at all. But I was remortgaging myself, and I'd previously, this is terrible timing for it, but I'd previously remortgaged in like mid 2022. So I was like, okay, hopefully things are a bit better since then. And the guy was like, no, not really. And I was like, well, surely it's going to get better this year. He's like, nah, this is the mortgage advisor. I was like, not really. It's kind of all baked into the long-term mortgage market. The rates aren't actually going to come down more for actual homeowners. I was like, oh, I wonder that's just, is that me?
But it's so interesting.
It's my credit rating.
That point's so interesting though, because around the media and interest rates and what actually happens. So with I think it was the second interest rate cut towards the tail end of last year. Now mortgage rates actually went up, if anything. But what we saw from data was just because there's an announcement in the media and the news that there's been an interest rate cut, buyer demand went up through the roof. So even though actually it's arguably more expensive for buyers because mortgages actually crept up or stayed the same, just because there was some positivity in the media and people think, oh, interest rate cut, that's good, without probably fully understanding it.
Yeah, exactly.
It boosted the market. So in a way, it's that that positive news and that kind of those media stories do really affect purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I mean, I don't think you should underestimate the power of confidence. You know, we can talk ourselves into a recession if we want to. We can talk ourselves into house price falls if we want to. If we talk about it enough and everyone talks about it. But the underlying fact is we're not building enough houses. House prices are rising because supply exceeds demand. It's a good market. Confidence is good. Let's keep the positive story going because it is a good market. It's a good market. So let's talk about it being a good market. Obviously, there's regional fluctuation, but overall, the basics within the property market are solid.
If you look at the resilience of the property market over the last 5 years, it's ridiculous because all the macroeconomic factors put to one side doesn't matter. Exactly as you say, there's more buyers than there are houses. So prices are going to go up and that's
Iron
it.
law of economics.
Yeah.
And I know some people have talked about a crash of 35%. It only fell 19% from peak to trough in 2008. And we'd lost 40% of our stock value globally. Now that was a crisis. We still only lost 19% of house prices. That was terrible for people who went through it. We experience nothing like that in the global economy at the moment. Who knows what Trump will do? But the reality is, signs are good, I think. I was listening to a speech by, is it Roger Martin Fagg?
Yep,
Economist. And he was basically saying, it's going to be good for the next 7 years. Make the most of it for the next 7 years. We have a demographic problem in 2032.
Yeah, there's not enough people.
Exactly.
I think my feeling on it isn't based on statistics, so you can take it with a pinch of salt. But it's just a gut feeling from being around the industry for so long. People get bored, and I think the Euros thing plays into that because they're not bored in the Euros. They've got something to focus on. But other than that, they get bored. And people have been bored for long enough. My experience of recessions over, the not so much in the 90s, but a little bit in the 90s, and then the 2007s, and then a little bit later than that, and so on and so forth, is that it affects things for a small period of time, and then people just get bored. Interest rates don't actually have to come down, like you said. I bought a house last year, and I fixed the interest rate for as long as possible because I just thought to myself, there's no real reason for interest rates to go back to zero. No. They are what they are.
That zero was a really weird period in the history of interest rates. And people forget that actually for the long term, interest rates track about 5% overall average over the long term. Yeah. So we went through a really weird period because of a global financial crisis from 2010 until lockdown.
Right.
That was the exceptional period.
Exactly.
Not the period we're in now.
And so people they'll just get used to the fact that this is how much it costs to buy a house, and then they just get bored. They just get bored. They just need to move, and that's why the property market stays so buoyant forever.
Yeah, great. I want to move on to fees next, which has been a topic since the start of time, I think. And I'll come to David on this because it's probably a specialist subject.
I'll crack my knuckles.
He's bored me to death on this one a few times.
Fought myself to death on it.
From the study, it says the prime market, which we're defining as £500,000 plus for this survey, only accounts for 24% of instructions nationally, but nearly 60% of overall fee income. Mm-hmm. So essentially, you can earn more at the more premium end of the market. Now, why don't all agents focus more on this segment? And I'll perhaps come to you on.
I've got
this
absolutely no idea.
Good answer. Very insightful.
I've got no idea why they don't. It just makes all the sense in the world to me. You've got is higher fees, percentage-wise, higher value properties, and as long as you don't get too rarefied into the 5, 10 plus £1 million properties or whatever, you've still got sufficient demand there that they churn quickly as well. You're dealing with fewer properties, so you don't, even from if you were doing it then by yourself, I think that lends itself to it perfectly, that personalised service from an MA through to completion. Or if you're running a traditional agency business, if you're dealing with less stock, you need less overhead, so your margins become exponentially better. Great question, Paul. I've got no idea. We've got no idea why more people wouldn't do it.
They should.
Can I interrupt you very quickly? They are though. So they actually are. And I can evidence this because the top 10 agents for selling properties over £750,000, every single one of them has lost market share. So what's not happening is that one of them with particularly deep pockets is outperforming the rest of them and taking that market off of the others. What's happening is lots and lots and lots of smaller businesses are eroding those established brands' market share and taking it for themselves. And I think that is massively exciting. It shows the power of personal branding, of technology, of being up and coming, that these household names can be dislodged from their status, relatively straightforwardly, and that's a massive opportunity. So I don't know why more people aren't getting into the premium market, but so many people are, that it is having a seismic effect on the market.
It'll be interesting, perhaps in 5 years' time, to see if that's changing. Because I think you're right. There are perhaps less barriers to entry in that kind of premium market.
I saw this trend when I left Knight Frank. And it was clear that the top brands were starting to be eroded by what's happening in the prime. What I was seeing when I was at Knight Frank, and saw a bit with Fine & Country as well, is really good agents are realizing that they're the really good agents, and they're striking out on their own. So the real fee earners are sort of striking out on their own and doing their own thing and joining their own organisations and going under other brands. Things like By Design and stuff like that have emerged to give them an infrastructure behind them being independent. To my colleagues at Knight Frank and the others, I think there's an element of complacency at the prime end. But if you take the prime end and just put that to aside, because that's a very nice place to play, our big issue is the 74%, 75%, the 3/4 at the low end. And there's this perversity that we have in our industry, and we've got ourselves in a mess over fees. We charge less as a percentage for lower value properties. So we've got ourselves into a situation where we earn a lower percentage on a lower value property and do more work and have to chase volume, turning us into a transactional industry. We need the majority of the market to be more sophisticated with its pricing. Yes, okay, people might come in and compare you on price, but if someone says, I've spoken to this other agent, he'll do it at 0.75%, but I thought I'd come and see if you do the same. You go, well, you came back to me to ask me if I'd match the price. There was something about me that you preferred. So the reason why I charge more is the reason why you've come back to me. And then be intelligent with the pricing. It might be hard to get the 1.5, 1.6%, but you could say, I'll match the rate if we get asking price. Everything above there, I'd like to get a higher percentage. When I sold my place in Notting Hill, I wish I'd worked in real estate because I got my place sold, I accepted the offer, it was great. And I remember speaking to someone who probably would have got quite a bit more money if you'd offered more money out of the above asking price to the agent. I'd have given them half of what I made above the asking price.
Yeah, it's all upside to you.
It's all upside then at that point. I took the price that they got me, thought it was best, but the difference that additional money would have made to the agent on them being on 1% or whatever it was, and the 10% they get of the 1% was 100 quid. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'd said, have half of the extra £20,000 you get,
they're going to get to work.
we'd all been better off.
And it says, so the average agent fee in the survey was just shy of 1.2%. Now, I bet some people probably over-egg that as well, potentially. I'm not sure if it is that from conversations, but I think we'd all agree that probably that is too low and it used to be higher.
I think the two things are linked though, aren't they? Like people don't get into the high end because to get into the high end is harder than to get into the low end. And I know you'll say there's less agents, but what I mean by that is that you've got to actually have a proper business that does proper marketing. You can't just like put a crappy leaflet through someone's door. And it's the same problem with the fee. You want to charge a better fee, you better find out how companies actually do that. Don't just go around there with no knowledge. You're a good estate agent, but there's actual ways to go and do a pitch. Like no company ever has been successful doing it the cheapest. So why does everybody default to that? It doesn't work in any industry, anywhere, for any product. So invest in the learnings as to how to get into the high-end market, how to get a better fee. It won't just happen by going, you know what, let's charge a better fee. No, it doesn't work like that. Oh, well, you know what, let's go in the high end. Like, no, but you can find out. Easier than ever to find out. You know, you've got a whole free report. Like, you've got YouTube, you've got people like David, like, the resources are endless. If you want to find out how to get a better fee and get into the high-end market, like, it's all there for you on a plate.
And you will see this between these two reports. This one talks about marketing, the next one talks about technology. Really good agents have embraced marketing. We'll talk about marketing later in the conversation. They've also embraced technology. So they do really high quality stuff and they've really embraced technology, AI and all the other aspects of technology. You know, they're ahead of the game. They're not just going, oh, we'll operate, as you say, absolutely. They're doing something quality. Price isn't discussed.
No, the old world is that you can see it the same as what you was just explaining there with Knight Frank. The old world is one whereby someone flies into Heathrow on a private jet and they go to the Ritz because it's the Ritz. And now they fly into Heathrow on a private jet, they go onto Instagram or TikTok, they do some searching, they go to some boutique restaurant that's very good at doing their marketing. and the Ritz don't even get a look in. And the people of Knight Frank have realised they can do that themselves.
Just an interesting point on fees, if I'm interpreting this correctly, is the 1.5% fees. Because like if you go 1.2% fees to 7% of people said that, 1.37%, 1.44%, and then you get to 1.5% and suddenly it's 14% of people say that. It's kind of an arbitrary number, isn't it?
Just a lie.
That just shows it's just.
But it's still, as a survey, it gives you some sort of a guide as to where people are, because you can say, okay, we accept that like people might over-egg things a little bit, like, but they're anchored to a certain level. They won't go crazy with it. They won't say we charge 5%.
Yeah, there's like a psychological anchor point there that is really meaningless in the span of things, but it's just a round number, so they like it.
And the nice thing is the long-term trends we see between the three surveys are consistent. So we're seeing it's not like moving wildly. There is this level just above 1% where people say, and actually I think if you look at other data, it's slightly below 1% the average fee. So we're slightly above what the average is, partly because a lot of my old connections tend to be from the Fine and Country, Knight Frank, Hamptons, John D. Wood world. So that slightly weights it. But we've kind of got the representation of property much better because it's so many people. Slightly over-egging it a little bit. But overall, our fees are ridiculous. Go anywhere else in the world and our fees are a joke.
Yep, agreed. So you also asked agents what their biggest challenge would be this year. And the top answer was finding new vendors, so 54%, which is a big proportion of that. Now,
is that just your job? Like, it's not like a new challenge, isn't that just...
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure personally that is going to be the person. It's kind of that, we talk about Instagram versus reality, that perception versus reality. That's what they think might be the challenge. Is it this year? I don't know. I think there might be other challenges this year.
I think the world is getting noisier. You know, there's lots of people spinning out as self-employed. There's lots of brands emerging. You know, we're seeing the sort of decline of the premium brands owning certain territory. You know, I was speaking to one agent and they've got two self-employed agents, won't mention the names, literally eating into their market share. I think you're right, the market's really good, but it's getting harder to get new vendors because it's more competitive. Competition is good. It means better service, and the ones that aren't good won't fall by the wayside. But I think people are starting to realise this isn't an easy game.
I think also, like, it's not the challenge, like David said, the challenge isn't getting new vendors. You have to read in between the lines, like, that's, as you say, just the job. The job of any business is to get new customers, right? But getting new vendors that will pay the money you want them to pay is the challenge. And again, like, that's not just going to happen. You have to figure out how are you going to do this? How are you going to make these people think that you're worth the extra money in a market whereby some of the big boys are just, all they can do is go race to the bottom? You're going to have to figure it out.
I think that's it. So when you say like the biggest challenge is finding vendors, of course it is, because that's the thing that you're setting out to do. That's what the job is. And then looking at the second biggest challenge was time pressure, and the third one is hiring and retaining talent. There's almost an argument to say lump those two together as well, because if you had the talent that you would want in your business, you wouldn't, dare I say it, be under quite so much time pressure.
Yeah. I mean, they all of the
it's all interlinked though, isn't it? It's because you don't charge a high enough fee, you're not getting enough revenue, and you can't pay your staff or attract the right people because you don't have enough money to pay them. It's kind of self-perpetuating.
And we have horrifically high churn as an industry compared to other industries. So we're not retaining talent and developing talent. People are coming in and leaving, and some people are staying for a very long time, but we're not necessarily attracting the right talent and then also creating the environment they want to stay in. There are better, easier alternatives in reality. This is not an easy job, but we don't necessarily reward people like the hard job that it is. And at 1.1% fees, it's hard to do that, especially if only 10% of that's going to the agent, which is kind of like this circular problem. But I think, one thing we want to look at this year is, once we've got more of the research in, is to do some kind of like quite clever regression analysis, and see how the factors relate to one another. Because we've got a big enough sample, we haven't had it before. We actually go, okay, if you put the two factors together, what does that mean? Or those three factors, and what's really driving the behaviour? And I think you're right. We may find time pressure and new talent is the problem with finding new vendors.
Yeah, great. So you also touched on kind of policy and external influences. So obviously this was asked towards the end of last year. So 40% of agents believe the October budget was a step in the wrong direction. 31% thought it was positive. So a bit of a difference there. Some people liked it, some people didn't. In terms of kind of, I suppose, looking at this year with policy and external influences, there's quite a lot of noise going on at the minute with the new government. What do we think will help or hinder the housing market this year? And I'm thinking we've got writers' reform, we've got the government just announced the fact that they want to digitise the property industry, whatever that means, and however they're going to do that. There's lots of noise from the government and changes, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. They're trying to do something, but it'd be interesting to see what we think is going to happen.
Mine is more ridiculous because, like I say, like, you know, I'm not. At least the research is fantastic. I'm not. I can't argue with any of it. Mine is all just based on a feeling. So a nice summer. Basically, like people, like I say, they unless something catastrophic happens, you know, you have a lockdown, like that's a pretty catastrophic effect, or, you know, someone like Liz Truss does what she did. No, we're talking major things. The property market just rolls on. I've never, even like you say, even 2007, there wasn't really people in huge trouble. Just people stopped selling because they were like, well, I'm not selling for that. And then it just naturally went back up again. Like, so it just rolls on. I think this year, like we've had a lot of bad news. If we can keep the bad news less catastrophic, then it will just naturally turn back into a buoyant market from my perspective.
I mean, I think, you know, that view on the budget, so much depends on how you voted in the election. If you didn't vote for the government, you didn't like the budget. If you did vote for the government, you're willing to give the government a bit of a chance. And regardless of your party politics, that's what the data says. It's just basically how you voted determines on how you feel about the budget. I think there were some good things in the budget, some terrible things in the budget. I think building 1.5 million houses, we need it. I'd like to see a realistic plan to do it. We have built that many when we were a smaller, poorer country after the war. We've done it. So it's not like it's not impossible, but we need to look at our planning laws and all that kind of stuff. So good stuff in there. My humble opinion about the whole government at the moment is they're only 6 months in. I just kind of want to see what they do and then review them in a year's time, which, fully enough, plug, we will do at the anniversary in July when we have the politics section of The Voice of the Agent, and we'll take a review on where they are 1 year in.
Get Russell Quirk on that, please. That'd be fun.
He's on the list.
I'll kick the hornet's nest with something here. So, Mark, you'll love this. So there's 11 different concerns here, ranging from the top one being economic uncertainty, talent shortage, cybersecurity. Guess what the bottom one is? Adapting to technological change.
Yeah. But the thing is, I've said many times, like, actually, that's one of the problems with a estate agency. The bar's so low, you can do it with a pen and paper. Yeah. You can. You don't need super technology in order to be an estate agent. But what that means is that you go into the group of people who get to charge 1.18%, even when they're lying a bit to try and increase it, and you get to work in the lower end of the market because you're just making a little bit of money. You're not really running a business.
Yeah.
And all of these things come to that, like how to do marketing, why technology will keep you ahead, how to retain staff, how to hire staff. They're all things that you have to learn if you want a really successful business.
Yeah.
They're not things you learn when you just go through the process of learning how to be a good estate agent. So it's just a mindset shift for people, I think, to realising that, like, just because you're a good estate agent doesn't mean you can run a good business.
You
need help from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, there's lots more on the sales side, but you'll have to download the report to see the rest. So let's move on to lettings. So as I say, from our own data, there's been challenges in the rental market in the last few years. In terms of with this survey, so 72% of agents reported a decrease in landlord numbers last year, which is a high proportion. And I know we know that landlords have exited the industry for legislative challenges and things like that. We know a lot of landlords deciding actually we don't see that the perceived value of a letting agent and paying them a 10% management fee. We'll go and try and list it our own on websites like OpenRent and manage it ourselves. Yeah. That's definitely happening as well. Yeah. So I suppose there's a challenge for letting agents to demonstrate why a landlord should continue to use them. So what what should they be doing, or what should we be encouraging letting agents to do to kind of keep landlords in the sector and using a letting agent?
I think being an authority.
Yeah.
So much happens in the rental space that doesn't happen in the sales space. The regulations are off the chart. I mean, if I was to, we let a house privately a long time ago. I wouldn't dream of letting a house privately now. It's just the rule. I mean, we probably were breaking law on a few things there. I hope it's not captured on recording or anything, but
It's only the 5 cameras.
It's literally all the cameras in front of me are saying, "You're Nick, Sonny." But now it's so complicated, and as an agent, your job is to educate your local area of what's going on. Be trusted, be an expert, be an authority. A huge rise of open rent. I mean, it doesn't really come up that much in some conversations, but they've taken 17% of the market, is it now?
Yeah.
16, 17%?
Yeah, they're over 10 times bigger than Purple Bricks, who are the biggest sales agent.
Purple Bricks tried to disrupt the sales market and never got anywhere near those figures. And look at the noise we made about Purple Bricks. Open Rent has done it quietly, silently, assassin, taken its market share. And while 70% report a decline, that doesn't mean we've lost 72% of landlords.
Yeah.
It's that 72% report a decline. A third of landlords are thinking of leaving the market, as you say, and some have left already. We've got Open Rate taking a 1/7 of the entire market. And do we believe that people who do it themselves have the best possible advice they need and aren't basically taking some risks with what they do? I really admire what Open Rent has done, but it's down to the agent to prove how they add value. And if you work in the industry, you wouldn't dream of doing it yourself, potentially.
I completely agree. I think letting agents have missed a trick. I think they've got to demonstrate all these pitfalls and almost in the right way, kind of scare a landlord into it.
Yeah.
Listen, there are 200 pieces of legislation. You can't possibly know all that. We can do this. We can do that. And yes, you need to pay us a bit of money, but in the long term, it's good. And using data and examples.
And it's legislation they can go to prison for if they get it wrong as well. It's serious stuff.
And again, this might be a bit controversial. I think some of the issue is I don't necessarily think all letting agents are that authoritative figure. Either. And actually, I don't know. The really good ones are, and I know there's lots out there, but I don't think every letting agent can confidently say they're fully up to speed with that themselves. Which, if they're going out, probably and there's a lot of landlords can get this information as well. You don't want to be in the situation where your landlord knows more than you do.
I think the best analogy is, B&Q hasn't put all electrical engineers and plumbers and everybody out of business. You can go and do it yourself, right? Somewhere in the middle, there's someone who'll come around and do it cheap for you, and as you say, they may not actually do it legally either. But so there's 3 levels of service, isn't there? There's do it yourself, cheap, no problem. It's great that the option's there for people. And then you've got the option in the middle, we'll do it kind of with you. And then there's the done for you option. And lots of people just want the done for you option.
They do.
So stop trying to sell it to the people that are arguing that they could do it themselves. You go and do it yourself then. Go and find the people that want the done. And it just comes back to the marketing. It comes back to knowing who wants your service.
Yeah. What's your customer profile?
The 17% on Open Rent don't, although they might.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe 20EA gives them the data to show who does want it. But there's 83% of people that might want the done for you service.
Yeah.
I'm by no means any expert on lettings, but there's 3 things that's ironic about the market. One is the Open Rent thing is that there's a correlation between more legislation and more people using Open Rent. You think would be the other way around, which is strange.
But I think that's the missed opportunity.
Agree.
Yeah.
The second thing is that the more the government seems to intervene with the rental market, presumably to defend tenants, the more they push landlords out and the higher rent goes. So the more they intervene, the higher the rents go, which is the opposite of what you would assume they'd be wanting. And the third thing is that given there is so much demand for it and rents are so high, as long as you're not leveraged too much as a landlord, you actually get great return. You've got tenants queuing up for this stuff. It's in demand. It can be great business, but it might not seem like that if you read all the headlines and just pay attention to that.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at buying some buy-to-lets, and we've got so much advice from people to say it was a terrible market to be in. I don't see those stats bearing out.
Yeah, that's what I'm
clearly
saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To your point, exactly. I think there's a lot of narrative in the national press about you've got to get out of this market. It's all terrible. It's all end of the world. The government's doing some terrible things to you. Do it properly. Get a managed agent, and bricks and mortar still remains one of the best asset classes you can invest in.
Yep. Agreed.
And provide people with a home.
Yep. Yeah, just on the letting side. So the biggest challenge for letting agents was keeping up with new technology. So, which is interesting. I mean, what types of lettings technology are we talking about here? What?
Can I just clarify something on the report actually? Because that's you're right. I was looking at this page here, which is
that's
just
the
concern.
overall concerns.
So overall concerns, number one was economic uncertainty. The bottom was the technology. Lettings only number one is technology.
So
that's
there's a complete difference between sales and lettings. Technology falls right down the route on sales. It's right at the top. I think we see more technology in the world. The kind of the providers out there who provide letting management kind of software, without mentioning any brand names and aspects of that. So I think there are more technological things in there. But I think there's an element of technology and regulation coming together here, and it just makes it a bit more scary, and people are concerned about that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be easy to sort of think that they're talking specifically just about prop tech. I think it's probably more a case that they're sitting there thinking like, what the hell is going on in the world of technology? Like, I've got, this person out the back who's looking after is managing my portfolio, and I've got some old software that we've had out the front, and I don't really know. There's a million things going on. I'm getting phone calls every day, emails every day. Apparently, TikTok's a thing and Instagram's a thing and this is a thing, and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
There's a book it's from the 1970s by a guy called Alvin Toffler called Future Shock. We're basically overwhelmed by innovation and the amount of technological change. If you think, we had the internet, then we had social media, we had the prop tech blend of that, and now we've got AI. And it's like, if you're, and I think a lot of people who kind of operate, certainly in the bigger brands, and actually you go to some of the bigger brands and the smaller branches, one or two people in a car park, some of them, where their toilets are literally the car park's toilets. I've seen this in the industry, quite big brands, but 6 small branches. And you're being told, oh, by the way, what's your SEO? What's your social media strategy? Are you using all the prop tech we've given you? And oh, by the way, we want you to create content with AI. You can see people going, there is also the law to follow. It's kind of overwhelming. I think we're all suffering from it a little bit, but I can imagine if you are a busy agent somewhere and you're pretty much on your own, it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
And we need to make it easier for them to use this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I classify us as a prop tech firm, and I spoke to Simon well about this. Obviously, I think on the Kerfuffle website, there's 700-800 prop tech firms.
Yeah.
And I have sympathy for estate agents or letting agents, because there's 800 of me calling, emailing these agents saying, oh, I've got a great new product, come and use me, and this is how it's going to change your life.
Just one more instruction would pay for it. Well, it needs to sell.
and yeah, it's overwhelming. But I think what that does is it switches a lot of agents off to any adoption of technology.
100%. But what they should do is they should take that experience themselves and think about what they do buy and who they buy it from and how they manage to end up on that path as to how because they're doing the same thing. Like there's 20, 30, 40 estate agents in a town bombarding a person. So like that approach is not necessarily working. They're being bombarded, they're just switching off, but they're still buying things. Who are they buying from and why? And if they start looking into that side of their business, then they can start to get a bit of a grip as to like, what technology do I need for the purpose of getting to the goal that I want? And the rest of it might be brilliant, but it's just noise to me. I don't need it all. I just need the ones that are going to help me get to my objective.
I mean, I'm a huge technophile. I'm a complete early adopter. Any new technology, I'm on it straight away. I love technology and CRM systems. I remember the early days in the 1980s of green screens and 90s, sorry.
You were listening to your iPod on the tube, weren't you?
100%, yes. As my Walkman, actually. But I think about technology, and it's often missed, is if your central message is bad, all that technology does is amplify badness. Unless you get the central things that you're saying good, the quality, what you're saying, the ideas within it, the central message, having technology means you can just tell more people how bad you are or how good you are. The other thing about technology, and again, I am the biggest fan, I would adopt it all if I ran an agency, and all the good stuff, the right stuff in terms of a family of them to put together, is they're copyable. None of the prop tech suppliers really have an exclusive relationship. They'll only provide their prop tech to one brand. They're selling it to all the brands. So if I've got it and my next door neighbour's got it, how is it an advantage apart from that point about central message? which leads to the third point, which segues onto the final section, is your brand really matters. Because the only thing that someone can't copy, because they'll end up in court, is your brand. Because that's your IP. So I mean, the Fortune magazine wrote, the only asset that's going to really matter in the next century is brand. Because everything else genuinely is copyable. You want the right family of tech. If you don't have the right family of tech, you're not doing the best interest of your client, and you're going to decline. So it's an absolute hygiene factor to have the tech. But unless you've invested in your brand, all your competitors can eat your lunch.
Yeah.
On that brand thing, you know, sometimes, PJ, you've probably done this, but you go to like a conference that's slightly out of industry, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? What are these people talking about? And they talk about smart buildings and all this sort of stuff. You're like, what's going on? I was at one of those, and they were talking about branded residences. I was like, what is this? And this is where you have tower blocks or something. And I saw there was like an advert or one or something I saw on socials in the last 24 hours, and it was I'm sure I'm getting it wrong now, but it's like a Bentley.
I'm consulting on one.
Oh, there you go. Like that's such a crazy thing. Like the power of brand, that you'd have a car and suddenly that brand is so powerful in the message that it transmits to a consumer. They'd want to live in a house with the same badge on.
Aston Martin, Bentley, they're all doing it.
Yeah.
And when you buy the house, you get the car.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're very popular, and everything is of the highest quality. It was interesting, my professor in marketing, Mark Ritson, basically talks about the fact that when they were building tons of properties down in Sydney, the problem is they were all the same. The difference they made was the branded goods they put in them. So it was all Miele kitchen fittings. It was the ones with the Miele kitchen fittings that people wanted to go for. Someone's just taken it to the next level, and now you'll get Burberry houses. There's a Burberry hotel. The branded residences is massively growing as a trend, because if you really associate with Mont Blanc or Ferrari, you kind of want your property to be that experience and have all the things you would expect from that level of brand. It doesn't mean everything in it has their stamp on it, but it just means a certain quality is achieved with
Everything's
it.
red.
Oh, exactly. Whoa, I need sunglasses. But they're really growing, massive branded residences.
Yeah. Great. I think that leads us on to marketing. I know your specialist subject and Mark's as well. So I think in summary, I think estate agents are good salespeople in the main, but marketing is completely different to sales. And what we've just discussed, if you don't have the right brand, or you don't know who you're meant to be talking to, or you don't know how to talk to them, you are never going to build a great estate agency business. So marketing is imperative to that, and I think this is where I think some of these results were really interesting actually. So if we just look at, actually before we crack it, what proportion of estate agents at the start of the year or the end of the year have a fully written out kind of marketing budget and plan for the year ahead? Would you say?
How low do we want to go?
Zero.
Zero?
Yeah, but
It's not just estate agents, it'd be most small and medium-sized businesses.
Agreed.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know. Would you argue if you had that plan in place, you're more likely to achieve your marketing goals and budgets, or
if you write anything down, you're more likely to achieve it.
Yeah.
And if you hold yourself to account with it, but it's Alice in Wonderland, and Alice meets the Cheshire Cat, and basically it's like two paths. Which way should you go? And the cat goes, well, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't know. It doesn't matter which path you take then. If you've got no North Star, you're just spraying stuff out there and praying.
Yep.
And I think, you need to know what you're trying to achieve with your marketing over 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and you've got way more chance of succeeding. What's the story you're going to try and tell over a period of time to position yourself for the audience that you want?
There's a section on marketing investment and budget. So how much of your revenue do you need to put into marketing to be successful? So interesting, the average estate agent puts about 12.4% of their revenue into their marketing budget.
Of their turnover?
Yeah, I think, is that right?
Yeah.
Do they count? Are they counting portals?
No, that's a separate figure in that. That's on top. We spend a lot.
The agents, what we call the growth agents, are investing more, so it's north of 15%, so slightly more. But if I was an estate agent, if I was starting out today or an existing, what level of investment? What's the right answer here? Or you might say there isn't one, but what is the right level of investment in other sectors or estate agencies? Is that about right? Or
Yeah. I mean, there's actually really hard data on it in terms of what startups invest in their marketing. And it's a classic, and we'll talk about Purple Bricks in a second of what they did. But the rule of thumb is you should invest 30% of the money you want to make.
Yep.
If you want to make £1 million, you've got to invest 300,000. It comes down quite quickly. After your launch year, you can go down to 8 to 12%, where we are across the industry as an average.
Yep.
That's growth. Once you're the market leader, and it's the unfairest thing in the world, once you become the market leader, you can spend 5%. So once you're the biggest brand by enough of a margin, you can reduce your spend because the brand is, as long as you're maintaining it. But if you're the challenger and everyone apart from number one is a challenger, you need to invest 8 to 12%, spending 12.4%. The hungry ones are spending 15%. The good ones who are trying to grow their business a lot to launch around. So I often talk to businesses when they're starting and they say, right, we're going to do our business. We want to get £1 million of revenue. I say, so you're putting £300,000 into a market. Oh, we've got about 20 grand for that. And they fail. No one knows about them. So no one chooses them and they go bust. You've got to tell the market you exist loudly.
Yeah.
And people are too quiet.
And I mean, obviously we've discussed the life cycle off air in another podcast, but there's actually quite powerful ways now to reach a large amount of people and the right people in an inexpensive way. I mean, just giving some examples with life cycle.
Yeah, there is, but I still agree with Simon in the sense that, like, it's just, you know, when someone says, "Oh, we want to do $1 million turnover," and you say how much you're going to spend on marketing, it's just unreal. It's just they're living in a dream world. If it was simple, if I could spend 20 grand and I'd do $1 million in, like, everyone would do it, wouldn't they? Like,
yes.
It's just not realistic. But even with smart technology, life cycle or whatever it is that you're using, it still comes back to, I was at a workshop yesterday. You said estate agents are pretty good salespeople, maybe not so good at marketing. They're not good salespeople either, unfortunately. Like, they're good estate agents. Like, most of them are a bit like me. They stumbled into a estate agency and they learnt from a branch manager. They had targets and they took people around houses and they tried to match people with houses, and they went on valuations and told people the value of their house and how much they would charge. But they were never really truly taught how to run a business, how pitching a product works, how marketing works, any of that sort of stuff. So when they left and opened their own estate agency, they're a bit lost because they're like, well, I guess the target's this. For what? Well, to make some money. And that's the business, to make some money. So actually what happens is they don't have what Simon was talking about. They don't have a North Star. They don't know, well, we need to charge this because this is where we're going. And they don't know why anybody should use them. And so therefore, it doesn't matter if you use Lifecycle or Google Ads, or if you take 50 grand banner in the high street, you haven't got a message. Yeah. Who are you talking to? That very few estate agents, when I meet them, can answer the question of, like, what's the point of your company? Very few. I mean, minuscule. It's an uncomfortable conversation, right? To try to get them to the stage where you can help. But most people can't answer the question of, like, okay, there's 17 estate agents on your high street. What's the point of your company? They go, well,
we sell houses.
Yeah, we're better than the rest. Okay, quantify that for me. Floor plans. What? And it's actually, like, you can't expect them to know. They've never been told how to identify that. It's just a process you need to go through.
We had a really good agent come to an event we call 30 Years of Marketing, and he's basically said, you know what, he's very successful, so he's done very well. He said, it's the first time in my entire career someone has told me what marketing is.
And then they can spend 300 grand and get to $1 million.
And he's got his branding right, he's done all that, and he's investing in marketing as he should, but he's investing in the right things. And just a little bit of knowledge. You don't need, this is why I do 30 years of marketing in one day. You don't need all the letters after your name and all the qualifications. You just need to learn enough to do it right. Sales and marketing should never sit as sales and marketing. There is marketing, it's one discipline, demand creation, and the sales, demand capture. And it's the two things are very different skills. I agree with you. We don't train people to sell, to negotiate. There's some real missing things that really would help people. I know a guy who's launching a business to help with negotiations because they know they'll win against most agents.
What's interesting, speaking of the marketing investment, is in this question here, excluding portals, what methods do you mainly use to generate new vendors? Of the top 10 for all respondents and growth agents, 7 of the top 10 are free or vanishingly
Yep.
cheap. So social media, word of mouth, review sites, emails, door knocking, online newsletters, brand partnerships, e.g. with other local businesses. And the ones that do cost, canvassing, leafleting, direct mail too, sponsorship, local events. Yeah, that's it. And then it's all the stuff above that line. So the things that the non-growth agents are spending money on as well is the stuff that is really expensive. Cinema, television, billboards, radio, newspaper advertising, mobile advertising, that sort of stuff. Actually, what's missing from here is for sale boards.
Yes, we thought of adding them in the past, and I think we'll put a question in about for sale boards next year, because actually everyone does them.
Yeah.
It's a default, isn't it? Really? You haven't got a choice. But it just, you see it all the time online in estate agency groups. Like, who knows? Can anyone put me in touch with someone that can help me to advertise on Rightmove for free and get a free CRM and do this? Oh, what? You want to set up a business for free and you're going to make £1 million? Like, what a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Like, it just, if you do what's easy, like, there's a saying, isn't there? If you do what's easy, your life's going to be hard. Yeah. If you do what's hard, the life's going to become easy.
Easy choice is hard life, hard choice is easy life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like you can't make a business out of nothing. It needs money and time and effort and work.
I think the combination of these are fantastic emerging channels. It's like, Daniel Priestley says, like, imagine if your long lost uncle was a media mogul and said, I'm going to give you all the media channels you want to speak to all the world's population for free. You'd rip their arm off. We've been given that opportunity in the social media age. Small companies like X and Meta have given you access to the whole market, and people still post pie charts. Yeah. They don't post anything useful. And it's called social media because you're supposed to engage. And the chart you're looking at there it was just so reassuring to me that across every single channel, growth agents just do more marketing. And it's like, if I could summarize the entire report into one sentence, people who grow do more marketing. Duh. No, that's it. I mean, and if you do less marketing, guess what happens?
Do you the thing that always that knocks my socks off is, right, so social media is number one. That's the number one bit of marketing people are doing, right? But I remember, Mark, this was in one of your events actually. I think it was Daniel Priestley that asked this question. He was like, okay, put your hand up, who here is building a personal brand online? And I couldn't believe how few people, and that's a room of pretty forward-thinking agents that are in that room doing it. I couldn't believe how few were doing it. That is just absolutely bonkers for what probably amounts to some crazy rationale over ego or fear of having the piss taken out of them or something. But it just works so phenomenally. Like, literally before I came here, I had a Zoom call with someone I've not spoken to for years and years and years, who's literally on the other side of the planet, who's interested in doing some business with us. She's, I've been looking at what you're doing, been seeing everything that's good. I've not spoken to her. And she's just got in contact from there. It's just, that doesn't cost anything. It's just the effort and the consistency and getting over yourself to post it.
Agents, they're better at it now. That event was, probably quite a while ago, wasn't it? Like 2018, something like that. But like, they're better at it now, but there's still, as you say, like, of course, do more marketing, get more business, but it probably goes a bit like the technology side of things, where they're just like, what does do more marketing mean? And that's where you just need an expert. Like, you don't have to. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is quite often I'll meet a small agent who goes, got it sorted now, I've just employed a marketing person, and I go and talk to them, and I'm like, tell me about the marketing person, and they say, well, they've just left university, and basically we're going to get them to make sure that we post blogs every week and that we put our stuff on Facebook and da-da-da-da. I'm like, that's an admin person. It's great, and you should have them, but that's an admin person. Like, don't mistake the two, because you'll fire them in 6 months because they can't do something that they never said they could do, which is basically show you how to market your business and how to have USPs and how to appeal to customers. Like that, you need an expert for. Go and talk to an expert and they'll show you how to do it.
I mean, 3 years ago, my profile was, I was known amongst a small number of people, certainly in the prime market space, certainly. No one really knew about me. And I literally, Daniel Priestley, 24 Assets, read the book. Right, first thing I'm going to do a bit of research. So I've done the research for my own reasons, but actually reading that book, I thought, you know what? Turn it into an asset. Put it out there, give it away for free. Say yes to every podcast opportunity. Make my name there. And the report, while genuinely it's for everybody to benefit from, to all questions, what do I do? Read the report, page, it's not 58 in the final version, but around about page 58, there's a lesson of what you need to do. And then go and find the experts who can help you with those things. But get that out, say yes to podcasts. And now I've got a calling card. I'm just about to publish a book, okay, calling card, that allows me to have the conversations. As a local, I was talking to another group earlier this morning, is every stat that's produced about property in this country is national or regional. I don't care about national or regional. I want to know what's going on in Boxmoor.
Yeah.
And as the agent, you can talk about, you can even say, Knight Frank said this. What that means for the homeowners in this area is this. Countrywide said that, Connell said that, this is what it means. Because if I got an email about, lots of promotion for Boxmoor whenever I go on podcasts, but if...
You're just pushing
I'm
prices
pushing
up.
prices up, yeah. Hey, marketing. Come and live in Boxmoor, it's lovely. Grand Union Canal, Boxmoor Trust, Chilterns. But by getting kind of all that content out there and people talking about it, it's just...
More share of voice.
More share of voice.
More share of market.
Voice. Thank you, more share of voice.
But yeah, I mean, I bang on about this all the time. You can take a national statistic or national...
always.
So take interest rate, the recent interest rate cut. Everyone will have read there's been an interest rate cut. Great, but what does that mean in Boxmoor? So you can say, there's been an interest rate cut, this is what's happened to mortgage rates, and actually in the 2-3 weeks subsequently, we've noticed 5% more properties come to the market, demand's 20%. This is what it means for house prices. This is what it means for you personally on your street. If you're doing that, you're going to be way ahead of most agents.
And that's way more interesting than the national stuff. I mean, I know you produce the house selling.
We have to produce national stats because we have the local data. We just can't possibly. It'd be very boring if we pumped out 3,000 local village
but
reports.
You wouldn't mind if someone took your report and shared it to their community and then put their local spin on kind of what it means for their local community. And that's not hard to produce. And if you're really good, walk down the street in your local area doing it to video. And then clip it with Opus, put some sound subtitles on it, and it's just really easy content.
So just on marketing, so these are your words, not mine. So estate agents aren't very good at marketing, but yet 92% of agents run all their marketing internally. And that's not usually, it's not necessarily a full-time marketing person. It's someone that does marketing on the side of another responsibility. So why don't more agents perhaps bring in experts or outsource or do that thing? What are the kind of benefits and challenges around that?
I think there's a view that they're marketers. They don't need external help. And that's a real kind of challenge for them. But what's interesting is that, to your point earlier, the admin person, half of the people who do it internally, it's part of their job. You can't have marketing as part of your job. Marketing is a job in of itself and should be a full-time job. It's a department. And if you can't afford a department, outsource it.
Yeah.
You know, go and talk to someone. And, you know, in this day and age, there are so many resources out there that are not expensive to help you. AI has helped enormously with that and getting advice. But we need dedicated marketers. It's not, you know, Red Adair used to say, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur.
I think also, like, I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just estate agents or all small businesses. They always compare the cost of certain things to, I could have a full-time member of staff for that. But so what? Like, you know, someone has said to me before, you know, well, life cycle, the cost of life cycle, I could have a full-time member of staff for that. Like, yeah, what's the point that you're making? Like, you could hire a junior school leaver, or you could have this software system that does all these things. I mean, if you don't want the software system to do all those things, then you don't need it anyway. But the junior member of staff's got nothing to do with the conversation. So outsourcing to a marketing expert, someone might think to themselves, over the course of the year, I could hire a member of staff for that. What's that got to do with anything? The member of staff, that's nothing to, they have none of the knowledge of the marketing expert. Totally different conversation. Like, if you want someone to go and deliver leaflets for you, yeah, go for it. But if you're looking to actually gain insights from somebody that you can't afford to employ this person, but they'll give you all the information, and then the people you can afford to employ will be able to be more successful. Like, it's just a mindset difference between how you run a business and surround yourself with useful people, some of which you can't afford to employ full time, and the idea that like, I'll just do it all myself and I'll hire some staff and I don't know, we'll deliver some leaflets and see how we get on.
And the other thing you see is a lot of businesses are trading on their legacy. So I was speaking to an agent who says, I don't need any social media, I don't need to do any marketing. It's like, yeah, but your brand has been around for 30, 40 years. You have every for sale board because the guy was genuinely involved, the founder in the community, sponsored everything, so they did do marketing, went to every event.
Had all the boards.
Had all the boards, and that's a legacy. But you can tell in the data already they're declining. They're seeing their market share decline because other people are coming in and they're just more visible. They're doing more marketing. Now, you can glide for quite a long time feeling you're doing okay. There's a lot of money in a estate agency if you run a business and you're going backwards. But it doesn't take long to have that black swan moment when it falls into a tip.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like quite often people bring in someone young and they go, yeah, because, you know, they know all about
They get
that.
social media.
They get it.
Yeah.
They're going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's just exactly the same as what Simon was saying. Like now it's just going to be an echo chamber of nothing. What are they supposed to post? I don't know. Social media stuff, like TikTok stuff. Like what? The message at the top has to be right, and the rest will fall into place. You can have like junior people or unskilled people to carry out certain jobs for you, but there's a shortcut, which is some people actually know how to get you to the stage whereby now you've got something to talk about with your company, whereby like people will pay you the right fee, you'll get the right properties, and there's some work that needs to be done. Some of this has got to be communicated on social media, it's got to be communicated by email, you've got to go and do this, you've got to go and do that. And those people can help you with that, but you need grown-ups in your business, one way or the other, whether you can have them full-time or part-time. You need the grown-ups.
Right, we're running out of time here, so let's finish with a kind of forward-thinking view. So, Simon, I'll turn to you first. So, what trends do you see shaping estate agency marketing in the next 2 to 3 years, say? So, someone's still listening to this and made it this far. What can they do in the next year or two to kind of be at the forefront of property marketing?
So I can summarise it in 2 words, which is quite great to have the gentleman next to me on either side, is brand will become ever more important. Your personal, and if you're part of a company, how your company treats its brand. But we're moving to a much more personal world anyway with social media. And in a world where there's lots of technology, people still want that personal touch for the most valuable asset they've got. So understanding why your brand is different from everyone else is going to be such a differentiator for the next forever now, because everything else can be copied. On the flip side of that is embracing technology. You know, I was talking to a group earlier today again about the fact that we're living probably through the biggest revolution we've had economically since the Industrial Revolution with AI. And we haven't even touched the surfaces of what it can do in the future. So I would generally recommend is speak to someone who understands brand or has a brand and be part of another brand, because there's some really good organizations out there. By Design is one where you can be part of a club of people who reflect where you want to play in the market, and you can fast track your own brand. And then technology, life cycle, other solutions are available. Second-rate solutions are available. Checks in the post, I know. But adopt technology to make your life easier. You know, to amplify how good your brand is and connect with people. So those two twin forces, your brand and the use of technology, are just going to become hygiene factors for businesses in the next, for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's end it there. David, Simon, Mark, thanks very much for joining me today. It's been great to chat.
Thank you.
Cheers.